Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason. I'm here to bring us the retrospective for Clark versus Smith and the look ahead to Hermansson versus Vettori. But we got to talk about some bad numbers here for us this past week. 4-6 or 40% accuracy, not good at all. 1-1 on the Patreon, came in a little out of the money. Picking up Baeza, we gave him a 100% chance, and then Devin Clark, we gave him I think a 98% chance to win. But he snatched a defeat from the jaws of victory by I don't know. We'll talk about that one in just a few short moments. But either way, just not the best performance for us. We're going to look ahead. Let's talk a little bit about this past week, and then we'll move on to next week. Here's the show. All right, so in the main event, we had Devin Clark break out and looked like he wanted to take the head off of Smith and end this thing very early, but ended up going to the ground in this one. Anthony Smith picked up a solid takedown and basically made the best of his bottom game. He ended up securing a triangle in 2.5 minutes. That's all she wrote. Clark, I think, honestly, he couldn't handle the pressure of the lights, had a lot of adrenaline, tried to jump all over Smith, was not able to use his fight IQ, take advantage of his Jackson Wink training. He was not able to execute a game plan. He went out there swinging like a really green fighter, and I know he doesn't have the most fights under his belt, but I gotta be honest, I did expect more out of Devin Clark. I know this was a tall order to come in. The guy is now 12-5. He was 11-5. He's 12-4 coming into this. He's now 12-5. And I just expected more out of him. I think that he did not fight to his potential, and this is just the crazy chaos that is MMA. You make one mistake, and then no matter how great of a probability I give you of winning, it's just not going to necessarily play out that way because you do not get to make up for your mistakes. There are not second quarters, second halves. There's no timeouts. There's no getting a point back. There's none of that. Once you're out, you're out. And that's what happened with Clark. So, hey, I still think he would have won the fight if it went deep, but it didn't happen. It's nothing else really to talk about. Anthony Smith basically saves his career to an extent because he was having a really tough go of things. He was looking real bad coming in with losses against Rakic and Teixeira, so he basically saves himself. He's now 2-3 over his last 5, and so, hey, maybe he'll be able to get another solid win out there, and we'll see what happens for him. Always happy to see the guy win. I was just disappointed with the way that Devin Clark went out there and sort of dropped the ball. So we picked up an L on that one. It just is what it is. In the co-main, we had our 100% pick, Miguel Baeza, defeat Takashi Sato. And this one here, great performance by Baeza. Outstruck him like crazy, 40-15. Obviously scored the takedown, picked up the arm triangle, and shut it down late in the second round. He was pretty much a lock of the night, and he worked out, picking up performance of the night money along with Anthony Smith, Sue Majari, and Nate Maines to open things up. So good $50,000 bonuses, 4 of them on the night, all performances, no fight of the nights. And Baeza ends up, like I said, picking up a solid win for us, one of the few bright spots by getting us a solid Patreon betting win. So just good performance out of him, and I'm looking to see Baeza more in the future. The next one we got wrong. Parker Porter defeats Josh Parisian. Very close fight. It was really the takedowns, I think, that really screwed up Parisian. He could not really stop him. He was taken down twice during the fight. He was obviously also outstruck. But when you're spending time getting back to your feet, that's energy. That's a lot of opportunities to absorb strikes from Porter, and that's basically what happened with this. And Parisian was not able to overcome that deficit, picking up a loss on the night for us. In one that I did get right, though, Bill Algeo defeats Spike Carlisle. Spike Carlisle picked up 4 takedowns, but couldn't really do much with them. Algeo scored one of his own, and the striking output of Algeo was just there to cement things here for us, outstriking him basically 2-1. And what made for a really, really good win by Algeo. In the next one, Norma Durmont defeats Ashley Evans Smith. In this one here, we had Evans Smith, but she was handily defeated. Again, outstruck 2-1, scoring a knockdown, 2 takedowns. It was a really dominant performance. We definitely got this one very wrong. She was not on the high probability side to win. In fact, I just kind of want to bring it back for a second. That's why we only had 2 this week. Typically, I always go in 3 on the Patreon, but I had low confidence with the majority of these fights or really I only ended up picking the 2. Now I know we went 1-1 on that, but we went to 2 because of the confidence in the statistics. Looking forward to next week, it's a similar situation, just keep that in mind, but that's the reason why we only went with the 2 picks. So that's just wanted to throw that out there. Anyways, Norma Dumont, dominating performance over Ashley Evans-Smith. Is what it is. We picked up an L on that one. And the next one, Jonathan Pierce defeats Kai Kamaka. We actually did get JSP in this one. It was a close fight, but Pierce scores the knockout in the late minutes or seconds of round number 2. Also, great dominant takedown performance. He just warned Kamaka out. And making that late replacement, Kamaka did, I think, didn't really benefit his gas tank. He did look a little bit tired after being taken down so many times, and Pierce was ultimately able to shut the lights out on him. And the next one, Anderson Dos Santos defeats Martin Day. This is one that we did not get right. Day gets caught in that guillotine, and that's it. That's all she wrote. It's late in round number 1, and I thought Day looked good, scoring takedowns of his own, but just ultimately could not get it done, and so it just is what it is. Another loss for us. And the next one, Gina Mizani defeats Rachel Ostovich. Ostovich looked good. I don't know if she'll get cut necessarily. I thought she looked okay on the feet. I think she maybe had a little bit of the edge in pure striking against Mizani, and it might, you might disagree with me, and that's perfectly okay. But I think pure striking, Ostovich looked okay. It was really the takedowns. Ostovich had really no takedown defense, and she looked decent once it got to the mat, picking up some nice reversals in the situations, but ultimately Ostovich could not get it done here. She was also handily outstruck, but most of that I think was from the ground and pound that Mizani was landing on Ostovich, and then ultimately taking her out with those kicks to the liver back-to-back. It does show that Ostovich is pretty tough. She was able to come back from one of those, but could not come back from 2, and ultimately took a knockout via kick late in the 3rd round. Will it be the last time we see Ostovich in the UFC for now? I don't know. It's hard to say. She's definitely a fan favorite because of the way she looks. So I can see her coming back for one more, but I think one more is all you could see out of her maximum. I do not think we're going to see her going any deeper than that without getting another win. So I think one more shot, maybe against somebody who's having their first fight, their debut in the UFC. I think that's the level Ostovich is at right now. I think you throw her out there one more time. If she gets a win, great. She can fight again. If not, it's time to cut losses here, and she can go out and sell her swimsuit calendar or whatever else she's going to do. So it is what it is, and we pick up an L. And then in the last 2 here, we got 1 win, 1 loss. Sue Majari picks up a phenomenal knockout, 44 seconds in against Malcolm Gordon. This was actually also a 100% probability. Now, I didn't put it on the Patreon because I didn't think these guys had enough information behind them to really feel like it was confident, so I went with Clark. They've obviously had a lot of fights in the UFC, but Sue could have been on the Patreon, and he was a great call if you did pick him up. And then the last one, Nate Maines defeats Luke Sanders. We had Sanders in this one. He was looking decent, outstriking Maines, but got caught in that rear naked choke, and that's all she wrote. Maines picks up a solid win in that catchweight performance. So like I said, 4-6, 40% accuracy. Some things did not go our way. It's hard to predict when the stats aren't that great, but those are excuses. We just have to take the losses as they are and look forward to next week. Let's go ahead and take a look at Hermansson versus Vettori. All right, so we're going to kick things off with the main event here, where Jack the Joker Hermansson is going to be taking on Marvin the Italian Dream Vettori in a late replacement. I believe this was supposed to be Darren Till at a time, and then somebody else, and hey, now it's Marvin Vettori. There's been some cancellations out there. So in this one here, I honestly believe that Jack Hermansson is going to win this one, and here is why. So the only time recently that we've seen Hermansson struggle is against guys with great knockout power, right? He was knocked out by Thiago Santos and Jared Cannonier back in 2019. Now, I do not believe that Vettori has that level of threat. He has just the 2 KOs over his 15 wins. Now, he does have 9 submissions, but here's the problem, though. I think Hermansson is a superior grappler to Vettori. He also has a great fight IQ, winning many fights over the stretch here with decisions over Ronaldo Souza, Jacare, okay? When you look at a guy like Jacare, submission master of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I cannot say, with a straight face that I think Vettori possesses a similar skill set and would be able to outdo Jacare and pick up a submission win against the Joker. So without the great power and without the superior grappling, I don't know how Vettori gets it done. Now, honestly, in my opinion, he could get it done by just great volume striking, and I think winning it on points. He could potentially also hurt Hermansson, and hey, the knockout is always there. It's just I think that the ability of Hermansson to get this thing to the mat and dominate there, or to keep it standing, again, 11 knockouts over his 21 wins, is there as well. He's not a great power puncher, but he can put it on you over the course of a fight and take you out with volume. Also, this is a late replacement for Vettori, so I don't know how he's going to come into this one. Now, he has great fight training over at King's MMA, and he, is a dangerous guy, a dangerous young guy, but honestly, I don't see him beating Hermansson in this one. We're going to stick with the Joker. He's the pick on Saturday. All right, moving on to our co-main, we're going to have OSP, Ovince St. Preux, taking on Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill. So this one I go back and forth on, and it's not my most confident pick of the world, but I actually am going to go with Jamal Hill. He's just looked really dangerous ever since he's come into the UFC. Now, recently his Kilton Abreu fight was overturned, but great knockout in that one, great knockout to come into the UFC, and I know that Ovince St. Preux makes a career off of, taking these young studs and basically bending them over his knee and humbling them, but I think honestly Hill can get it done here. Now, Prue did prove me wrong the last couple of times with wins over Alonzo Menefield and Olenstruck. I'm pretty sure I had Olenstruck and Menefield those, and then he lost to Rothwell via split when I had picked OSP. I'm having a hard time really locking down Ovince right now, but he was really struggling before that. Lost to Krylov, lost to Reyes, lost to Latifi. He's gotten a couple wins here and there, but honestly, I think Jamal Hill possesses the ability to shut the lights out on Ovince St. Preux, who does have some miles on his chin. Now, with that being said, if this thing goes to the mat, I think it's Preux all day. He does have, his great Von Flue choke or his OSP choke where he really gets his shoulder in there in the carotid artery. He's got some tools, and so honestly, if Sweet Dreams Hill can't put this one away early, I don't see him getting it done. I think the longer this fight goes on, the more the odds start to favor the salty veteran in OSP for sure. But I'm going to go with Hill. It's not my most confident pick. There's not a whole lot of fights out there for Sweet Dreams, but I like him recently. He looks good, and I'm going to stick with the prospect in this one. We're going with Sweet Dreams Hill. All right, moving on to the next one. We have Talia Santos taking on Montana De La Rosa. And in this one here, I like the Brazilian more. I'm going with Santos. I think that she's looked phenomenal in her outings thus far. Granted, she did the split decision loss to Mara Romero Barella, but bounced right back and beat Meatball Molly McCann, which is a tall order for anyone in the ladies' divisions. Also, we have seen Montana struggle just a little bit. Lost to Viviana Rujo, lost to Andrea Lee, and she also did actually beat Mara Barella. But I think Talia here has the skill set to defeat her. She has great knockout ability, 10 knockouts over her 16 wins. And while De La Rosa does have the 8 submissions over her 11 wins, we have a couple for Santos. So as long as she can stay away from the heavy grappling, keep it a stand-up fight, I like Talia here a little bit more, especially when you factor in her 83% takedown defense. She also has 2.33 takedowns per 15 minutes as well. So the stats, I think, support Talia picking up a win here. Even if it does go to the ground, even if she does try to score some takedowns, I believe that Talia gets it done. She's going to be the pick on Saturday. All right, moving on to the next one. We have a fairly green fighter in Roman Dolidze taking on John Allen Arte, the Hunter. And in this one here, I'm going to go with a relatively green fighter here because of how he's getting it done. Just the one fight in the UFC, but a knockout, and he's had a string of knockouts, 4 in a row, looking for 5. This guy has only ever gotten stoppages. He has no decisions over his 7 wins, and despite him only having one fight in the UFC, I think he's looked amazing thus far. Now, looking over at John Allen Arte, he has struggled a little bit coming into the UFC, lost in the Dana White Contender Series, had the no content against Mike Rodriguez, and I don't know how he's really going to do here in this one. I honestly believe that the greener fighter, Roman, is going to be able to get it done here. Granted, Alan Arte is younger, trains over shoot box, but I still believe Doladiz, from what we've seen out of him, has the ability to get this thing done anywhere. He has the killer instinct, and he's going to be the pick on Saturday. All right, moving on to the next one. This might be the dark horse of the night. This is an exceptional fight. We have Nate the Train Landwehr taking on Mosvarv Ivilov. And in this one here, I like our undefeated Ivilov. He's looked phenomenal thus far in the UFC. And I think that even though we've seen great stuff out of Landwehr in his win over Darren Elkins, I think that he's going to run into a guy with just too high a fight IQ. Now, when we look at his wins, 3 decisions in a row, all unanimous. And then coming in off the M1 promotion, he was performing exceptionally well, scoring knockouts and submissions. Now, it's not to say Landwehr doesn't have his own string of knockouts himself, 8 KOs over his 14 wins. It's just that I think Ivilov is more balanced. 3 KOs, 4 submissions over his 13 wins. And even though he has yet to score a stoppage in the UFC, I think that he's due. The guy is only 26 years old. He came out of a premier kind of Eastern promotion in M1. I don't know about premier, but just maybe like just sub premier promotion in M1. And I think that he can get it done against a guy in Landwehr who likes to throw leather. I think that he can catch him with a big shot if they want to stand. And I think Mosvar is going to be the one to get it done. He's going to be the pick. All right, in our next one here, we're going to have a veteran in John Vellante taking on Jake the Prototype Collier. And in this one, I like Collier. Now, Collier has struggled off and on here. He's win-loss, dating back to 2014. Okay, and he did have a layoff from 17 to 2020. So I think he can come back here, finally be able to pick up a win. He was knocked out very early by Tom Aspinall. Now, that doesn't bode well for the guy, but historically his numbers have looked good. The problem is, though, that he hasn't been that active, and so I do wonder how the ring rust situation is going to play out. Given the fact, though, that John Vellante has lost his last 2 outings, okay, and hasn't won since 2018 against Ed Herman via split decision, okay. In fact, he hasn't had a win via unanimous or stoppage back since 2016. And so I think given their 2 kind of resumes here, I'm going to stick with Collier in this one. The numbers support it. The guy does have ability both standing and on the ground, but he's a bit younger. I think he has a few less miles on his engine here, and so I'm going to side with Collier. But this is not my most confident pick. Just know that this really could go either way, but we're sticking with the Prototype Collier at the end of the day. All right, our next one here, we're going to have Matt Handsome Wyman taking on Jordan Levitt in what should be a solid fight. For Levitt here, the Monkey King, he only has the one fight in the Dana White Contender Series, but he came out of LFA, he came out of some other smaller promotions, and he has back-to-back submission victories against a guy that has a hard time winning on occasion. So this guy has lost Luis Pena and Selecki, TJ Grant. He also has a lot of inactivity. This guy fought in the UFC back in 2013, 2014, came back in 2019, and hasn't fought in almost a year. So I'm not really big on Wyman, whereas Levitt is active. He's only 7-0. He's younger, but he's hungry. 5 submissions over 7 wins. This guy knows how to get it done on the ground, and despite the fact that Wyman has never been submitted, I have to assume here that Levitt might be able to take it to him. He's 37 years old. I think he's a little past his prime. I'm going to say this right here. I think he's just fighting for a paycheck, and I know Levitt is fighting to get into the game and make a statement. He's fresh off the Dana White Contender Series, and he's the pick on Saturday. All right, next one here at Bantam, we're going to have Jimmy the Brick Flick, solid fight name, nice alliteration, coming in against Cody Durden. And in this one here, I like Flick. Again, coming off a Dana White Contender Series and out of the LFA promotion. He's looked solid, getting 3 stoppages in a row, all via submission, against a guy who has been submitted once in his career, but not in a while. Now, when we look over at Durden, though, he only has the one fight in the UFC that went to a draw with Chris Gutierrez, so either one of these, we don't really have a whole lot of information on. In fact, the only information we have on Flick is his Dana White Contender Series win via arm triangle, but it did go at least to towards the end of the third round, so we get as much data as possible for one fight, I guess. 13 submissions over 15 wins. He has high fight IQ, high stoppage ability. The only thing, though, 4 knockouts. He's been knocked out 4 times in his career, and Durden has 5 KOs over his 11 wins. So I do think that Durden does have a KO potential because of the miles on the chin of the brick, but I still think the brick gets it done. He's the pick on Saturday. All right, next one here, we're going to have Damon the Leech Jackson taking on Ilia Topuria, fighting out of Spain. And in this one here, we have 2 solid grapplers, with Damon Jackson at 14 submissions over 18 wins, and Topuria having 7 over 9 here. But I'm going to side with the very young prospect in Topuria because I think he has the higher ability at this point in his career. He's only 23 years of age. He's undefeated. He's looked very solid coming into the UFC. He even got a knockout outside of it, and I think he's going to be able to get a win here. Now, same kind of situation though for Damon Jackson. Despite having having a much bigger record, he's kind of a prospect at 32 years of age. Spent most of his career kind of just hanging around LFA, went to the PFL, finally got in, beat Mirsad Bektik, so he's finally getting an opportunity here, but I think Topuria is going to be able to defeat him. I like what I've seen out of him so far. He has good fight IQ, he has good stoppage ability, and I think he has the ability to defeat Damon Jackson. Just bear in mind, this kid is only 23 years of age, though. He is a little green, and it's not my most confident pick. There's a lot like that this week. There's a lot of, really just low levels of statistics available, so just keep that with a grain of salt, but I still like Topuria here more, and he's the pick. All right, we're rounding the corner to our final 2. We're going to have Gabriel Benitez taking on Justin Janes, the Guitar Hero, which is just a cool fight name. We have 2 solid gyms also backing these guys, with Benitez fighting out of AKA and Janes coming out of Extreme Couture. But in this one here, I like Benitez. Both these guys are coming off of some losses. Omar Morales and Sodiq Yusuff for Benitez, and Gavin Tucker for Janes. But I think statistically here, we've seen such great ability to score stoppages with Benitez, 7 KOs, 10 submissions over 21 wins. I think those are flukes. He's training at a really high level over at AKA, and I think he can get it done here. Now, that's not to say Janes doesn't have his own set of abilities, but I think that the southpaw in Gabriel Benitez and the 3-inch reach advantage might be enough to expose Janes on the feet. And if it does honestly go to the mat, I still like Benitez here. We'll see how things play out, though. It's a lightweight matchup. Keep that in mind. Janes is coming up from 145, and Benitez is fighting at his more natural 155-pound weight class, which is another factor as well. But southpaw, reach advantage, striking output advantage, I think he's going to be the pick in Benitez. All right, and the last one here, this is another replacement from a few weeks ago. We have Luis Smolka taking on Jose Quinones. And in this one here, I like Quinones a bit more. He doesn't have as much experience as Smolka, but he has shown really high fight IQ when given the opportunity. Now, he does have a loss in his last one to Sean O'Malley, but he got a win over Carlos Hausch in his last one, and Nathaniel Wood he lost before that. So the guy's basically losing to some of the best fighters in the division. Now, where does Smolka stand? Some people think that he could have been one of the better ones out there a while back, but he did take losses to Casey Kenny and Matt Schnell, and I think he is slightly on the decline now, despite the fact that he's only 29 years old. I think that he has suffered some rough losses, and I think Quinones has the aggression to go out there and make Smolka doubt himself. The numbers also support this as well. When we go ahead and look, we see higher takedown rates out of Quinones, higher takedown accuracy, better takedown defense, and the striking, while higher output for Smolka, I think can go toe-to-toe with him. Quinones can. So in this one, we're going to go with El Teco, Jose Alberto Quinones. All right, let's go over them one more time. We have Hermansson, Hill, Santos, Dolidez, Ivalov, Collier, Levitt, Flick, Topuria, Benitez, and Quinones to round things out. All right, so if you would like to get in touch with the Fighting Spirit Podcast, go ahead and write us at fightingspiritpodcast@gmail.com. You also can get in touch with me on Twitter at MMAFightPicks01. And of course, there is the Patreon where we always give our highest probability picks out there. They'll be out there again on Friday for us. I'm hoping we can do 3, but I'm going to take a look at it and decide where we stand on that. But I am a little questioning in the probability of some of these fights. So we'll try to get the best ones out to you for sure. But, hey, it's tough when you're dealing with guys who only have 1 or 2 fights in the UFC. Also, though, sidebar, we have a exclusive Patreon liquor review up there. We did Pendleton 20-year Canadian whiskey recently. That's on there if you're a member of the Patreon. At any dollar level, you get access to that. So if you'd like to support the show at a dollar amount that makes the most sense to you, please head on over there. And for as little as $1, you can get access to some of the extra content. All right, so we got some more coming at us fast and furious here. Let's take a look at some of the upcoming fight cards. Coming up on December 12th, we're going to have Figueiredo versus Moreno at UFC 256. Also, in my personal opinion, the real main event there is Tony Ferguson, Charles Oliveira. That one is one not to miss whatsoever. We also have Renato Moicano take on Rafael Fiziev. Solid fight. Kevin Holland and Jacare. That's an amazing fight. Junior Dos Santos and a big test for Cyril Gane. We also have Sergey Spivak and Jared Vandera. Don't know too much about those guys at the end there, but that's shaping up to be a solid card. And then, unfortunately, December 19th, Leon Edwards, as of today, at the time of recording this, has COVID-19, supposedly tested positive for it, and will not be able to fight Khamzat Chimaev on the 19th. So they will need a replacement with about an 18-day window for Chimaev. It'll be interesting to see who they get in that one. And then finally, the last one available, January 16th, Holloway versus Kattar. In that fight, I think really, or card rather, really hasn't come together yet. So yeah, just Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. So those are basically next events. So we have the 5th this weekend, the 12th, the 19th, and then the rest of the year is still coming together. We'll see how things play out with those. All right, so I will keep bringing you all the best picks in the biz. You just keep listening, and until I speak with you again next time, happy fight picking.